So I recently had something of a misadventure trying to boondock on a remote primitive road in Wyoming over near Cody. And that experience reinforced several things to me that I already know, but it's easy to get lax about, about best practices for safe boondocking. Okay, so in case you didn't see the video already, I was over in Cody. I went to Thermopolis, then Powell, and then over to Cody. I was doing like an almost week-long trip, trying to find a place to camp near Cody for a few nights. It's been so wet that it's been challenging to get out. I've spent too much time in the city, so I was a little bit anxious to go do some boondocking. And there were a couple roads that were kind of muddy. And so I went down 2 in a row, turned around, came back out because they were getting worse than I wanted to be on in the van. Third one, I said the same thing. Hey, I'll just turn around if it gets bad. Little did I know that road is one lane, a narrow one lane, borrowed ditches on both sides, and it ran for about 12 miles before I found a place I could pull over and stop. And that was in the road. There just was a spot near a corner where it was sort of 2 lanes wide, and I was able to park there, wait for it to dry out over, into the next day, then go another 2 miles down the road before it got bad again. Overnighted again. That plan I at least had a nice parking spot to pull off in. Overnighted again, and finally got out the 3rd day. So that was kind of a adventure. That's that story in case you hadn't heard it already. So in any case, it's not exactly the experience I had planned when I went over there to Cody. And hopefully the traffic noise isn't too bad. I'm staying at an actual campground right now. It's a county park. I'll have a review up on it on our website, our Two Meander website, twomeander.com, in the next couple of weeks. But we're right off of I-25, so there is some traffic noise, and hopefully it's not too bad in the video. Okay, so this video, like I said, we're going to talk about several best practices for safe boondocking. We're focusing on safety in this video, so we're not covering things like leave no trace. I hope you already know that and are already practicing that. We're talking about best practices that'll help keep you safe. All right, so first up, be very careful heading down blind primitive roads. That is, it's a road you don't know, and it's a road you can't see very far down, and you can't see to where you're sure you can turn around or anything. Just be careful about that. And that's going to be especially true in larger vehicles, or if you're hauling a trailer, or if it's muddy or snowy or icy. In my situation in Cody, I started off, it was a little bit wet, but not bad at all. It was well maintained, and it got worse, and it got worse in a hurry, and there was nowhere to turn around. But I didn't know there was nowhere to turn around because I couldn't see all the way down the road, and I wasn't that familiar with the road. I'd only been on it once before, and it was plenty dry that time, so I wasn't thinking about places to turn around. Worse yet, there wasn't even anywhere to pull off if I'd run into anybody coming the other direction. So that would have been hairy all by itself. But especially when you're dealing with primitive roads, whether it's Forest Service, BLM, or even in some of these western states especially, I don't know about out east, I never ran into out there. Some of these western states still have primitive roads that have very little maintenance, and they may be county roads, they may show up on the map as a county road, but they may officially be designated as primitive and have very little maintenance done, as they can be pretty hairy. In addition to the mud on this road that I was out at by Cody, I also, when I was leaving the 3rd day, when I was finally getting out, I ran into several rock slides that come down off of mountains, and one of them has some really big rocks. I mean, a couple of those rocks were like the size of mini fridges in your RV or your van. So I mean, you just never know what you're going to get into out there. Okay, so be careful about going down roads you don't know when they're primitive roads. Next up is consider the likelihood of having cell service if you need it, or do you have a GPS, like a spot device that you can call for help with if you need it. If you get stuck or if you break something, are you going to be able to get out on your own? If you're not, are you going to be able to call for help? In this case, I was a pretty good I was pretty confident I was going to be able to have a cell signal, at least most of the places out there, because again, we camped out there once before a couple of years ago, so I was at least optimistic of having a cell signal most of the way. But that's something to think about if you're going way out in the backcountry. What happens if you do get stuck, or if you break something on your vehicle, or you end up with a dead battery even, are you going to be able to get some help? Okay, related to that, once you can get help, I think it's worth considering your resources before you go too crazy on backcountry adventuring. Do you have the resources, either a off-road towing plan, which the only one I'm aware of is actually through the spot, and you have to pay extra for it, but they have an option to get an off-road towing plan where they'll come out and rescue you. Most I'm not aware of another one available anywhere for any price. But and if you don't have that, are you going to be able to pay to get help if you need it? Where I was at, I talked to a guy working on the radio towers nearby, and he was telling me one of his coworkers got stuck the same day, the same road, just a little further down in a four-wheel drive pickup, and it was a $500 tow bill to get him pulled out. And you can't always get people to come out and get you. So that's, if you can even find somebody, is likely to be expensive. That was $500 for a winch out from a mud hole. That wasn't getting towed miles out on a primitive road. Okay, so what about supplies and provisions? How much water do you have? How much food? How much fuel in your vehicle? How much fuel for your stove or for a heater if you're going to need to run that if it's cold, if you might need to run it if it's cold at least. And what about medications? If you have medication you take that you require, are you provisioned so that you can be out longer than you think you're going to be out, is the point. So let's say you're planning on being out somewhere for 3 days. Well, if you only have 3 days worth of provisions and you do get stuck or something breaks, or you get sick or injured and can't travel right away, are you going to be able to weather that and stay out for a little longer? In my case, when I was on this road in Cody, I was only planning on being out there for 2 nights, 3 days, and I had enough water and food to easily get me through a week and a half without even rationing or worrying about it. So that took a lot of stress off, knowing that I might get back to town later than I expected to take care of some business errands I needed to do, but I was safe. As long as I was parked somewhere right, I could make it. I had electricity for solar, and I had all the supplies I needed to get through for a lot longer than it was going to take for things to dry out. That allowed me to relax and enjoy the scenery and the solitude and the birds where I was at, because there wasn't any immediate risk to my safety or well-being by not being adequately provisioned. Okay, another thing worth thinking about when you're going off-grid, well, in the backcountry, is tools. Now, if you don't do any kind of mechanical work, you're not willing or able, then it doesn't really matter if you have too many traditional tools that way. I still think it's worth having some basic stuff, but that's just my opinion. But what about a tow strap? So if, you may get stuck, and if somebody comes along to help you, if they don't have a tow strap, they're not going to be able to pull you out still. But if you have a tow strap, you may be able to find somebody eventually to pull you out and get you moving again. Or make sure you have a jack and spare tire, and know how to change it. I highly recommend carrying at least a battery booster, a jump booster, or a jumper cables. I personally have a battery booster. I probably should get jumper cables too, in case I had a really dead battery. It works really well. It's compact. It's a little lithium battery in it. And it's cost me about as much as it would to get a jump start if I had to call somebody out to give me a jump. So not too bad, and it's a good investment when you're out in the backcountry in case you end up with a dead battery. If the battery's really, really dead, that little booster pack I have won't do it. You'd need like a really big industrial-sized booster, or jumper cables, and have another vehicle jump you. And then, of course, you got to wait for somebody to come along. But again, not everybody has jumper cables. So even if somebody's willing to jump you when they come along, if they don't have cables, then at least if you have them, you can provide them and hopefully get back on the road. And I also recommend carrying a shovel at least, and probably traction mats are a good idea. I need to get some traction mats. I don't have any right now. If you're not familiar with them, they're basically rectangular shaped plastic sheets that have knobs on them, and the idea is if you get in the mud or sand, you can use your shovel to dig out a little bit around your tire, wedge these things in under your tire in the direction you want to go, and hopefully they give you enough traction to get up out of the soft spot you're in and onto solid ground again. And then, if you're got 9 or 12 miles to get out like I did, I was 12 miles in and 9 miles in front of me on a loop road, that's they're only going to get you just so far. You don't want to be doing that every 3 feet, but it's a good thing to have. And the shovel I did actually use the one time where I stopped the first night. I tried to back up and it wouldn't go, which didn't surprise me because I was on a hill, so I just stayed where I was till the road dried up. But I was able to dig out some of the heavy muddy clay from around the wheels, which made it easier to get going again. So it's a really valuable thing. Even if it's a compact, short one, at least have a shovel. Some people carry like a saw or an axe to deal with fallen trees that can be across the road. That does happen. I'll tell you my approach to that, because unless you're really in good shape and experienced with those tools, you're probably going to have a real hard time cutting through a tree with an axe or a handsaw, unless it's a real small tree. Deborah and I have run across several trees down across the road. They've been smaller, so I was able to literally just get out and I was strong enough to just drag them out of the way. But if you got a tow strap, you may be able to drag it out of the way using your vehicle. So another good advantage for the tow strap. And you could use the tow strap also to move boulders that come down like the ones I saw, because those boulders that were the size of refrigerators, you weren't going to be moving just with by pushing them around. So those are just a few thoughts that were reinforced to me for best practices for safe boondocking after my little misadventure out there by Cody. But what about you? Have you ever been down a road you shouldn't be down? You probably shouldn't have gone down in the first place. Let me know in the comments below. I can tell you for me, I'm going to be a lot more conservative next time I come on a muddy, primitive road, and I'll probably think twice about whether I actually go down it or just find somewhere else to go for that day. So, you know, nomadic life is an adventure no matter how you do it, no matter how careful you are. But at the same time, there's a fine line sometimes between having an adventure and gambling. And quite frankly, that road I went down by Cody was kind of gambling, and I regretted it. And fortunately, I made it through with no harm, and it all worked out fine. But I took a risk I shouldn't have taken, just assuming I'd be able to find somewhere to turn around. I had no intention of driving down a road the condition of what I ended up going down. And I never would have tried it had I had any idea how bad it was going to be. So, you know, there's this fine line between gambling and having an adventure. Hopefully you don't want to cross into that gambling, and at least following these best practices we talked about in this video will help you stay towards the adventure side rather than the gambling side. So thanks for joining this video, everybody. Hope you found this information helpful and useful, and maybe you can learn from my hair-raising adventure or misadventure and save yourself some grief yourself on the road. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you in the next video.